and I'm here to talk about a magazine called Reason. Okay, this magazine is Unreasonable. I mean, actually, some of the stuff I'm sure that is on there is perfectly fine and makes reasonable sense, right? However, when it comes to the topic of UFOs, Reason should not be a place that should talk about UFOs whatsoever, because they have no idea what they're talking about. And in fact, they just had a video. I will leave a link for it, and and it was an interview with Mick West. I'm not going to show any clips from this video but I am going to go through some of the things that are said in there. They have a little article here where they, and I'm going to go through this article where they talk about basically his ideas about UFOs, and it's a shame that we were talking about. But this guy, I mean, Mick West is the biggest debunker of our age. He's the one that everyone goes to on the internet. Like he's getting interviewed here for Reason magazine. Okay, this guy's the biggest debunker out there, and he's making some absurd statements, and they need to be called out. And we're going to call him out right now. Okay, this video and this little article is called "That Fuzzy Blob is Not a UFO." Science writer Mick West examines alleged UFO sightings. He finds that they almost always have far more obvious explanations. And then he's here. I'm kind of unpopular. This is him talking. I'm kind of unpopular in the UFO community because I have a bit of a negative outlook, and they prefer things to be aliens. It's not a negative outlook. You have a phony outlook. Your outlook is completely nonsense. It's complete nonsense. You don't base your anything on facts for the most part. I mean, you basically what you do is you look at something like, for instance, the gimbal video. You come up with some scientific mumbo jumbo, and some people look at it and they think that you solved the whole mystery, and when you really didn't. You just buffaloed them all. Not only that, but the whole thing of it is the people like him, they ignore all the evidence all the time. Now the idea that he says here that all the UFO videos we have are blurry, and it's not because alien spaceships are blurry. It's because when you zoom in, you see that it's not an alien spaceship, at least so far. Now, for one thing, there are some videos out there where they're not blurry, but he doesn't talk about them. I don't even know if he knows about them. I'm not sure what he's looking at. I mean, really, there's a lot of videos out there. I have some of them I've talked about on my YouTube videos, some recent ones. There was one in Brazil. I mean, there's a lot of different videos out there over the years. And there's also a lot of pictures that are very clear, obviously flying saucers, right? But when you show these people, show them a clear thing, a picture, an image that's clear, they'll say, no, that must be fake then. Right? Anything that's clear is fake. And then the rest of them, the blurry ones, well, it's something else, obviously, to them. It's all disingenuous. I mean, they don't. I mean, then there's the other cases, too, like the Ariel School, Travis Walton, Pascagoula incident, all those. Like, they didn't even, a lot of those they don't consider. They just don't even think about them. They're obviously hoaxed, must be, in their minds, right? But anyway, I'll read the rest of this here. It says, West is the author of Escaping the Rabbit Hole, How to Debunk Conspiracy Theories Using Facts, Logic, and Respect. And he runs a popular YouTube channel where he takes a detailed look at alleged UFO findings, finding that phenomena thought to be visitors from another planet almost always have far more obvious explanations. In recent years, the UFO craze has migrated from the grocery store rag, the Weekly World News, to the New York Times, Time, Politico, and Forbes, and the government has sunk considerable money into studying the issue. And here's the best quote of all. Wait to hear this one. West says this: "The government knows more about everything than it's willing to tell us, but it's dubious that it knows anything about UFOs being aliens." Okay, it's actually dubious that Mick West knows anything about anything, because he actually this guy has not studied a damn thing. He has not studied this subject. He has no idea what he's talking about. I mean, nobody who would study this whole thing would talk like this. I mean, there has been a government cover-up for 75 years now. If you were to read the books, do the research yourself, you would know this. You would know this. But he sits back and he doesn't, just makes proclamations, right? Doesn't do any real research, obviously, none, right? And this is how it is for all these debunkers. They don't do any kind of real research. No, God, no. But, yeah, this guy's a phony. I mean, he's just a total, absolute phony. And yeah, okay, there's things out there that he debunks that I actually agree with. I don't believe that, 9/11 to me, that was, hijackers, terrorists hijacked some planes, crashed them into buildings. End of story. There's a lot. To me, the only real conspiracy is this UFO cover-up, because anybody who did the research would know that there's something going on. And besides that, again, like I say, I always say this, I have an ace up my sleeve, because I saw one of these objects, and plus I encountered one of the beings when I was a kid. So, I have that. So I know that this guy and these other people, they're out there making fools out of themselves. They don't do the research, but there are people out there that think this guy's really smart on this subject, and he's not. He's a dummy. He's a dummy. D-U-M-M-Y, dummy. Mick West, dummy. You're a dummy when it comes to UFOs. You have no idea what you're talking about. And look at, I don't care, right? Look at, I'm going to say this. The book, he's trying to say, his book's called Escaping the Rabbit Hole, How to Debunk Conspiracy Theories Using Facts, Logic, and Respect. Well, he doesn't use any facts. He's not using any logic. And he's not using any respect, because he doesn't respect the readers that are looking at his books. Because he's telling them nonsense. There's no respect. None. Zero. Absolute zero respect. You have no respect for these people. You have not researched this subject like other people have. All you do is you find some pictures and you come up with a way to try to show people how it might have been faked, and then you move on. Now, I'm not saying that some of the times, I'm sure that there are some cases where you're right about, okay, there's some object, some picture that somebody took, and and maybe it was an insect that was flying by. Okay, big whoop. That doesn't solve the whole UFO problem. That doesn't solve the physical trace evidence, right? That doesn't take care of that, right? Did you ever look into the stuff that Ted Phillips uncovered, the late Ted Phillips? Right? There was a guy from the Midwest here in the United States who for decades, went to all these different locations where UFOs, where flying saucers and weird objects landed, and found all kinds of different evidence. Right? Did you ever look into that? Or you just don't see anything like that? You don't look into it. So that, in your mind, right, you just think there's no evidence, but actually you're just ignoring the evidence. You don't look into it. So it's not. This book is nonsense. What's the point in reading it? Even before just by looking at the title, it's phony. What's the point in looking at it? Why waste your time with it? Why should anybody waste their time with it? I mean, basically, you actually have the government now for the past 5 years acknowledging that there are things out there that their pilots are experiencing, Navy pilots, Air Force pilots, that they've been seeing over the years. You actually have them acknowledging now that there's things out there that they can't explain. Not just in the air, but under the water. Transmedium objects, too, in and out of the water. We don't have any technology like that. And again, this has been going on for decades, so it's not just like it just started happening. If you did your research, Mick, you would realize this. You would know that this has been going on since 1947. But you don't do your research on it. You don't do anything. You just lie to people. You just fool people. You make proclamations. No research whatsoever. And you have a magazine that calls itself Reason printing your nonsense. Reason my ass. There's no reason. There's no reason to even read this nonsense. But again, you see it on Twitter. I couldn't help myself. I had to click on it. Now I'm all angry because it's all a farce. And what's really? Let's talk about. Let's think about this. So only reasonable people believe that there's no such thing as extraterrestrials coming to this planet. Only reasonable person would believe that. Only unreasonable people believe otherwise. You must be, if you believe that there's an extraterrestrial presence on Earth, that makes you unreasonable. Think about that. Think about how crazy that sounds. Right? It's actually unreasonable to think that it's not happening with all the evidence that's accumulated over the past 75 years. There's just too much. That's too much. It's overwhelming. And you're not looking at any of it. Instead, you're coming out with this nonsense. Keeping people's brains in the dark ages. But yeah, that's how I feel. Obviously, see, I'm angry at the debunkers, and especially this guy here. I mean, to come off like he's some, he's very soft spoken. Very, if you didn't know any better, you would think, oh yeah, this guy makes sense. Yeah, he makes sense. He must have done his research, right? And there's actually people I've seen on Twitter that think this guy's, the smartest thing to come around since sliced bread. They're totally buffalo, totally fooled by his nonsense. This guy has not done the real research. I mean, yeah, he could sit there and look at the pictures from Ukraine, from those Ukrainian scientists, and maybe he's right. Maybe they are just insects, right? You have him saying insects. You have Avi Loeb saying that they're military cells. I don't know which one's right. It doesn't really matter, right? What does it really matter when you really think about it? Because, I mean, that's just one case. I pointed that out before. Who cares? There's tens of thousands of other incidents that could be looked into. But the debunkers don't look into the other ones. They just, what they're doing, they're doing a disservice. What he's doing, right, is a disservice to humankind because he's wrong. You are wrong. Everything you're talking about, you're wrong. All these debunkers, you're all wrong. There's something here. I know for a fact. I've seen these things. So you're making a fool out of yourself. In the end, in the final analysis, at some point in the future, you're gonna be the clown and the dunce in the corner at the end of this whole thing. And then meanwhile, what you're doing right now is you're fooling a lot of people. You're conning them, making them believe something that's not true. You're just coming up with stuff. Like, even on my show, right? A lot of this is speculation. I just know one thing. And one thing I know is that there's something here. There's a presence here. There must be, right? Because I've seen one of the beings, right? I've seen one of the craft. And there are things that could not have been manufactured by humankind. There just couldn't have been, right? And not just that, but that being was not human. I don't know what it was. It only had 3 fingers on its one hand. And they weren't human fingers, anything close to it. And there's a lot of other people out there that saw these things too and encountered these things. But yet, you have all these people out there just, oh no, they must be crazy. If you saw that, then that means you're crazy then, right? I mean, what else could it be? There's no other explanation, because it would be unreasonable to believe that there's aliens from other planets coming here. Oh my gosh. That would be absurd. Really, it's actually absurd to think that they wouldn't be coming here when you consider the size of the universe. Didn't you just check out those recent images from the James Webb telescope? I mean, open your eyes, buddy. Anyhow, yeah, that's how I feel about this. As you can see, it just drives me nuts that we have at one. Well, you're just talking about earlier here. We're talking about one group of people trying to blow the lid off the cover up, right, and trying to get the truth out there. And on the other one, you have on the other side of this whole coin, right, you have a group of people just no, it's not true. Oh no, it's not true. Oh no, it's not true. I can prove it. Where's your proof? You don't have. That's the thing. They don't really have any proof. It's just proclamations. I proclaim. I just know. I'll just make up a story. Oh, you know what? Oh, I don't have an answer for that one, so that one just must be in a hoax. That's all it is. That's all it is. Anyway, I guess that's all I got to say about that for now. It's a shame. I just think it's these people are not. They're not honest. They're dishonest actors. That's what they are. They're dishonest actors. And it's not just West. I mean, I'm talking, there's other people out there doing this, pulling this, playing this game, pulling this stunt. It's not just him. There's a bunch of them. And they're fooling people. It's like, and here's the sad thing about it. A lot of the things that they talk about, I totally agree with them. But when it comes to this subject, there's something going on. Right? When it comes to the UFO subject, they just can't accept it, or I don't know. I don't know what's going on, right? Something's going on. I don't know what it is, right? But when it comes to this subject, right? I don't know. They try to downplay the whole thing. They try to make everyone else look like fools, right? That believe in it, that think there's something going on. And then I don't know. To me, it's holding humankind back because of this, right? You have a bunch of, again, the government, they're withholding this information for a long time now, obviously, right? There's no question about it. Meanwhile, you have a bunch of people that just aren't prepared for this, and these people aren't helping that situation. These debunkers, they're not helping the situation at all, making these proclamations, because you have people that really believe there's nothing going on because of these people. And again, these people don't really do any real research. They don't look into it, and that's a problem. We have a bunch of people running around this planet right now that think there's really nothing here. They're because of debunkers lying to them, not doing any kind of research, but just assuring them that there's nothing here when it's a false assurance. They really have nothing to back up their claims, really. Now, a couple of pictures here and there might be something else, of course, right? I'm not saying that, but overall, right? The phenomenon overall, they can't debunk it because it's really happening. There's just too many people, too many witnesses, too much proof. Did any of these debunkers ever look at the objects that Roger Lear took out of some of these implants that were removed from some of these abductees? Did they ever look at that and study that? Did they ever do any kind of research with that whatsoever? No, they have not. Did they ever sit down with the kids from Ariel School and talk to them one-on-one? Like some of these UFO actual people who researched it, did they ever do that? No. They sat from afar, made up their own opinion, and then said, no, it's all nonsense. It's a traveling puppeteer troupe. Did they ever sit down with anybody that claimed to be abducted by aliens or saw a UFO up close and personal? Right? Did they ever look at any of the physical trace evidence that's been collected by people by Ted Phillips? No, they have not. All they do is make proclamations and lie to the people who follow them. That's all that's going on. That's it. They're liars.